this group. We are going to discuss about the Philippine Constitution. A constitution is defined as the fundamental law of nation or state. It is the constitution that establishes the character and basic principles of the government. It is the same principle that makes clear the right of the individual and creates limitation to government power. It is also described as the highest expression of the law. So, ang constitution dahil maupo ni siya ang nagkuhan sa highest expression of the law. Okay, a history of the Philippine Constitution, at least 7 Philippine Constitution were framed in our history. So, naarite pito tayo frame history ngayon tabong sa ato sa Pilipinas. So, one of these is the Pact of Biak na Bato. The Biak na Bato Republic Constitution of 1897. The Constitution of Biak na Bato was the provisionary constitution of the Philippines Republic during the Philippine Revolution and was published by the Philippine Revolutionary Government on November 1, 1897. So, naitamo na rin the Pact of Biak na Bato the year November 1, 1897. So, and its leader namugna na siya, it is because ang abuso na kayang mga Spaniards tas nagbuhat og revolution ng mga Pilipino, which is ang leader sa revolutionary, which is si General Emilio Aguinaldo. So the Constitution was borrowed from the Cuba and written by Isabelo Artapio and Felix Ferrer into Spanish, and they translated it into Tagalog. So nagkahawig din na siya sa Cuba. It is because ang bansang Cuba nag-conduct sila og revolution kay kuan kanang mao ang nahitabo sa Pilipinas na gisakop pud sila sa mga Spaniards. So ang gasulat ay si Isabelo Artapio ug si Felix Ferrer, ug sila ang ga-translate it into Tagalog. The organs of the government under the Constitution were the Supreme Council was vested with the power of the Republic and headed by the President and the 4th Department of Secretaries. So ang mga nahalal ato nga mga constitution, so ang nanguna which is si Emilio Aguinaldo, which is siya as President, and the Interior Isabelo Artapio. Foreign Affairs si Antonio Montenegro, and the Treasury which is led by Baldomero Aguinaldo, and para sa war si Emiliano Reyno de Dios II. The Constitution of Biak na Bato was never fully implemented. Since the Pact of Biak na Bato was signed between the Spanish and the Philippine Revolutionary Army. So, wala rin na siya na fully implemented. Kaning Pact of Biak na Bato, nagtagal rin siya o isa na siya kabulan. Kay nagkuha na siya pangkapayapaan, which is nilagdaan ni Gobernador General Fernando Primo Rivera o Revolutionary Army, which is ang leader, which is si General Emilio Aguinaldo. The separation of the Philippines from the Spanish monarchy and their formation into an independent state with its government called the Philippines Republic has been enthroned by the revolution in the existing war. The Biak na Bato Constitution provided for the establishment of the Supreme Council that would serve as the highest governing of body. So, the Pact of Biak na Bato was never fully implemented. So, as you can read the Treaty of Biak na Bato, gibaligya daw ni Emilio Aguinaldo ang Republika ng Pilipinas sa halagang $800,000. Sa pagbaligya ni Emilio sa mga sa mga Spanish nga naas po sila kondisyon nga which is $400,000 kung si Emilio Aguinaldo maghinumla umuadto sa Hong Kong, which is isugot po si Emilio Aguinaldo. So sa pag-adto niya sa Hong Kong, wala nagpadayon ang kanang peace. Kapadayon niya po ng mga Revolutionary Army, it is because wala daw nila nadawat ang ubang kwarta nga ipangako sa mga taga Spain. So, sa pagbalik ni Emilio Aguinaldo diri sa Pilipinas, nagkandak na po siya og war against the Spaniard. It is because grabe na kapang abuso. Nagkandak siya war, it is because tabangan daw siya sa mga Amerikano. Sa loob ng 333 years, napatalsik ni Ginoong Emilio Aguinaldo ang mga Spaniards sa tulong na rin ng mga Amerikano. And mauna ang Treaty of Piak na Bato. Second one is the Malolos Republic Constitution of 1897. The Malolos Congress was which elected a commission to draw up the draft constitution on September 17, 1898, which was composed of the wealthy and educated men. So, sa pagguman sa the Pact of Piak na Bato, sa loob ng 333 years, abi ni Emilio Aguinaldo na kampi niya ang mga Amerikano, which is ibaligya na pala sa taga-Espanya sa mga Amerikano ang Pilipinas sa halagang 20 million US dollar. So, maotong nagbuhat si Emilio Aguinaldo og meeting which is nag-compose na siya og mga wealthy men, mga edukado, mga naikaya sa kinabuhi ng mga Pilipino. So, the document they came up with approved by the Congress on November 29, 1898 and promulgated by Emilio Aguinaldo on January 21, 1899 was titled The Political Constitution on 1899 and written in Spanish. The Constitution has 39 articles divided into 14 titles with 8 articles of transitory provision and a final article. According to Felipe Calderon, the author of the Constitution, these countries were studied because they shared similar social, political, ethnological, and governance conditions with the Philippines. So, kanina ay nabuhat din ang Malolos Constitution para na magkaroon og kalayaan na naa sila mga Pilipino, naa sila karapatan na magbuhat og kaugalingon nilang gobyerno nga dili ta magpasakop sa mga taga-Espanya. So, the form of government according to Title number 2, Article 4 is to be popular, representative, alternative, and responsible, and shall exercise this distinct power, legislative, executive, and judicial. The legislative power was vested in an cameral body called the Assembly of Representatives, and members of which are elected for terms of 4 years. The Malolos Constitution was never enforced due to the ongoing war of the Philippines was effectively a terror of the United States when upon the signing of Treaty of Paris between Spain and the United States transferring sovereignty of the Philippines of December 1898. So, the Malolos Constitution was never kayo siya na-implemented. Wala ka na siya nagtagal. It is because nag-exist naman doon ang Philippine o American War. O, maorami siya nilabo sa Malolos Republic Constitution. And that's all. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Dr. Adrian Vilono from Group 7, and this is my part of our report. Philippine Governance and Reference System. The 1995 Constitution and the Commonwealth Government. American ran the Philippine government for over a decade. By 1930 to 1921, under the Governor General Francis Gordon Harrison, Filipinos were given a hand to run the country. By 1906, Jones Law, also known as the Philippine Autonomy Act, was passed by the U.S. Congress. Filipinos were given time and power to rule over the archipelago. On October 16, 1916, Serge Osmeña as Speaker of the House, Manuel Quezon as Senate of the President. Harrison also formed the Council of State as an advisory body to the Governor General. Despite that, American let go of Filipinos to solely run the government, yet petitioned for Philippine independence. From 1908 to 1932, there were 5 independence mission, and by Tidings McDuffie law, it was approved on March 24, 1934, also known as Philippine Independence Act, provided the drafting and guidelines for a constitution for a 10-year transitional period before we were granted the Commonwealth government. On July 10, 1934, there was an election for Philippine Constitution. There were 202 delegates elected and opened on July 30 and was finished on January 31, 1935 and approved on February 8 by a convention. Thomas Cabrilli of Iligan City, Mindanao felt that the Constitution did not serve the people of Mindanao on March 23, 1935. It was approved by U.S. President Franklin Roosevelt. May 14, 1935, it was ratified by Filipinos through plebiscite. By 1935 to 1972, the Philippine Commonwealth Constitution served as the Filipino law of the land, and Philippine independence was declared. Now, the Philippine Republic, the 1935 Constitution had specific and enumerated many laws. Filipinos were given equal opportunities. And in 1943 Constitution, President Manuel L. Quezon was exiled, napriso siya, saksi mo, in the US by the Japanese interruption on September 4, 1943, and ratified by the Kalipabi. Napriso siya sa US by Japanese interruption. Ang Kalipabi kuno kay maoy usa ka persistang partido politikal nga Pilipino nga nag-alagad isip nga inusarang partido sa estado sa okupasyon sa Hapon. Mao siyang Kalipabi o ani. On October 14, 1943, Jose P. Laurel was the president of the Republic. 1943 Constitution was basically a version of the 1935 Constitution consisting of preamble and 12 articles. The Constitution was effective only during the war. On 1945 were liberated and back to Commonwealth in the Philippines. Preamble of Commonwealth Constitution. The Filipino people, imploring the aid of divine providence in order to establish a government that shall embody their ideas, conserve and develop the patrimony of the nation, promote the general welfare, and secure to themselves and their posterity the blessing of independence under a region of justice, liberty, and democracy, do ordain and promulgate this Constitution. Ang katawhang Pilipino nangayo og tabang sa divine providence aron matukod ang usa ka gobyerno nga maglangkob sa ilang mga mithi ug mapalambo ang patrimonya sa nasod. Dayon, mapasiugda sa katibuk-ang kaayuhan ug masigurado sa ilang kaugalingon ug sa ilang kaliwatan sa mga panalangin sa kagawasan ubos sa usa ka otoridad sa hustisya, kagawasan o demokrasya. Nag-orden o nagproklamar niini nga constitution. And that's all. Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. This is my report. The 1973 Constitution and the Marcos Dictatorship. On June 1, 1971, a constitutional convention was convened at the Manila Hotel. Its purpose was to write a new constitution that would meet the new challenge confronting the Philippine Republic that developed since it was formed in 1946. It was during the second term of President Ferdinand Marcos that the convention opened. June 1, 1971, nagpatawag si President Ferdinand Marcos og meeting at Manila Hotel. Ang aim nila ani is to write a new constitution na natutugon sa mga hamon ng Republika ng Pilipinas. Since na-form na ni siya 1946, nitabo ni atong second term na ni President Ferdinand Marcos. Almost immediately, the convention the Freedom Constitution in 1986. On March 24, 1986, President Aquino signed Proclamation NO3 entitled Declaring a National Policy to Implement the Reforms mandated by the people, protecting their basic rights, adopting a provisional constitution, and providing for an orderly transition to a government under new constitution. The provisional constitution, later called the Freedom Constitution, was proclaimed setting aside the 1973 Constitution, thereby recognizing the new Aquino administration as a temporary revolutionary government until the framing of a new constitution. It basically adopted some provisions the 1973 Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights. Under the Freedom Constitution, the President continue to exercise legislative powers until a legislature was convened under a new constitution. Furthermore, the President was given the power to appoint the members of a constitutional commission tasked to a draft new charter truly reflective of the ideals and aspirations of the Filipino people. In this generation, was the President. June 24, 1986, President Aquino signed Proclamation NO3 entitled Declaring a National Policy to Implement the reforms mandated by the people, protecting their basic rights, adopting a provisional constitution, and providing for an orderly transition to a government under a new constitution. Later on, the provisional called from constitution was proclaimed set aside. Sa daw nila nag 1973 constitution kay they recognize the Aquino administration as a temporary revolution government hangtod sa makahimo na sila og new constitution. So the Aquino revolutionary government was basically adopted some provision in 1973 constitution, especially kaning Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights is emphasize the list of the most important rights the citizens of the country. Under the Freedom Constitution, President Aquino continue to exercise Congress, and then after President Aquino appoint a task to some of the Constitutional Commission to write a new charter, and it is truly reflective of ideals and aspirations of the Filipino people. That's all, ma'am, and thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm the next reporter. I'm Roland D. Quijano, and my topic is all about the 1986 Freedom Constitution. Proclamation number 3, series of 1986 on March 24, 1986, President Aquino signed Proclamation number 3 entitled Declaring a National Policy to Implement Reforms Mandated by the People, Protecting Their Basic Rights, adopting a provisional constitution, and providing for an orderly transition to a government under a new constitution. President Corazon C. Aquino is the one who promulgated the Freedom Constitution. Often called the Freedom Constitution, this constitution was intended as a transitional constitution to ensure democracy and the freedom of the people. The Freedom of Constitution provided for an orderly transfer of power while a constitutional commission was drafting a permanent constitution, whereas the new government was installed through a direct exercise of the power of the Filipino people assisted by units of the new armed forces of the Philippines. Whereas the direct action of the people was done in defiance of the provision of the 1973 Constitution as amended, whereas the direct mandate of the people as manifested by their extraordinary action demands the complete recognition of the government, restoration of democracy, protection of basic rights, rebuilding of confidence in the entire government system, eradication of graft and corruption, restoration of peace and order, maintenance of the supremacy of civilian authority over the military, and the transition to government under a new constitution in the shortest time possible. Whereas during the period of transition is to a new constitution, it must be guaranteed that the government will respect basic human rights and fundamental freedoms. The Provisional Constitution, later called the Freedom Constitution, was proclaimed setting aside the 1973 Constitution, thereby recognizing the new Aquino administration as a temporary revolutionary government. Until the framing of a new constitution, basically adopted some provisions of the 1973 Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights. Under the Freedom Constitution, the President continued to exercise legislative powers until a legislature was convened under a new Constitution. Furthermore, the President was given the power to appoint the members of a constitutional thus to draft a new charter truly reflective of the ideals and aspirations of the Filipino people. The second is the 1987 Constitution on April 23, 1986. President Aquino issued Proclamation Number 9, Article 5 of the Freedom Constitution constituting a Constitutional Commission or called CONCOM, charged with drafting a new constitution not later than September to 1986. In line with this issuance, President Aquino on May 26, 1986, appointed the 50 CONCOM members representing the various sectors of society from politics to the arts and to the religion. After a period of nationwide information campaign, a plebiscite for its ratification was held on February 2, 1987. An overwhelming 17,059,495 vote to ratify the Constitution while 5,058,714 vote against it. On February 11, 1987, the new Constitution was proclaimed ratified and in effect. On that same day, President, government officials, and the military pledged allegiance to the new Constitution. The 1987 Constitution consists of 18 articles with a preamble. Among its significant provisions are as follows. First, presidential system of government restores the bicameral Congress of the Philippines, composed of a Senate and a House of Representatives. Second is a modified Bill of Rights, Article Number 3, details the rights of every Filipino citizen. Much emphasis was placed on the writing of this provision after the violations committed during the Marcos dictatorship. And the Constitution includes the abolition of death penalty except when Congress provides otherwise with regard to heinous crimes. Number 3, the creation of a Commission on Human Rights which, under Section 18, Article 8, is tasked to investigate all forms of human rights violation involving civil and political rights. It provides appropriate legal measures for the protection of human rights of all persons within the Philippines, and several other powers in relation to the protection of human rights. 4 is the recognition of an autonomous region of Muslim Mindanao and Cordilleras. 5th is the limited political autonomy for local government units like the provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays, and instructing the Congress to establish a local government code. Attempts to amend or change the 1987 Constitution. The 1987 Constitution provided for 3 methods by which the Constitution can be amended, all requiring ratification by a majority vote in a national referendum. 3 methods. First is Constituent Assembly. A Constituent Assembly, also known as a Constitutional Convention, Constitutional Congress, or Constitutional Assembly, is a body assembled for the purpose of drafting or revising a constitution. Members of a Constituent Assembly may be elected by popular vote, drawn by sortation, appointed, or some combination of these methods. Constitutional Convention. The Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 or all its members, call a Constitutional Convention, or by a majority vote of all its members, submit to the electorate the question of calling such as convention. And the third is the People's Initiative, or PI, is a common appellative in the Philippines that refers to either a mode for constitutional amendment provided by the 1987 Philippine Constitution, or to the act of pushing an initiative, national or local, allowed by the Philippine Initiative and Referendum Act of 1987. The appellative also refers to the product of either of those initiatives. Using these modes, there were efforts to amend or change the 1987 Constitution, starting with the presidency of Fidel B. Ramos, who succeeded Corazon Aquino. The first attempt was on 1995 when the Secretary of National Security Council, Jose Almonte, drafted a constitution, but it was exposed to the media and it never prospered. The second effort happened in 1997 when a group called PERMA hoped to gather signatures from voters to charge the Constitution through a people's initiative. Many were against this, including then Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, who brought the issue to court and won, with the Supreme Court judging that a people's initiative cannot push through without an enabling law. The succeeding president, Joseph Ejercito Estrada, formed a study commission to investigate the issues surrounding charter change, focusing on the economic and judiciary provisions of the Constitution. This effort was also blocked by different entities. After President Estrada was replaced by another people power and succeeded by his Vice President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, then House Speaker Jose D. Venecia endorsed constitutional change through a constituent assembly, which entails a two-third vote of the House to propose amendments or revision to the Constitution. This initiative was also not successful since the term of President Arroyo was mired in controversy and scandal, including the possibility of Arroyo extending her term as president, which the Constitution does not allow. The, administra- the administration of the succeeding President Benigno Aquino III had no marked interest in charter change, except those emanating from different members of Congress, including the Speaker of the House, Feliciano Belmonte Jr., who attempted to introduce amendments to the Constitution that concern economic provisions that aim toward liberalization. This effort did not see the light of day. And that's all, ma'am.